My name is Amanda, I'm 38, and I came home to find my 8-year-old daughter banished to the basement by my own parents. Before I tell you how one charity dinner and a single, forgotten letter destroyed their entire world and gave me back my freedom, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. It all started a year ago, with the word that still tastes like ash in my mouth: divorce. It wasn't just a separation, it was a demolition. My ex-husband and his lawyer were a ruthless team, turning a decade of my life into a pile of financial rubble. The fight for custody of my daughter, Chloe, was brutal and drained every last cent from my savings. The house I'd poured my heart and soul into, the one where I'd painted Chloe's nursery and marked her height on the doorframe, was sold to pay off legal fees I never imagined I'd have. In the end, I was left with my beat-up Honda, a few boxes of belongings, and my daughter's small, trusting hand clutching mine as we walked away from our old life forever. That's when my parents, Richard and Carol, offered what seemed like a lifeline. "Come stay with us, Amanda," my mother had said, her voice a carefully crafted performance of sympathy over the phone. "Just until you get back on your feet. We're family, after all. What else are we for? Family." The word felt like a life raft in a churning, black ocean, and I clung to it with the desperation of a drowning woman. So, Chloe and I moved back into my childhood home, into the very room where I'd once dreamed of a future that looked nothing like this. At first, it felt like a blessing, a moment to catch my breath. I was grateful for the roof over our heads, for the semblance of stability in Chloe's turbulent world. I threw myself into finding work, landing a decent job in marketing, and started the slow, arduous process of rebuilding. My entire focus was on making sure Chloe felt safe and loved, a bubble of warmth to protect her from the chill of our new reality. But it didn't take long for the cracks to appear in the foundation of that family support. They were small at first, tiny fissures you could almost ignore, but they were there. And they all centered around my niece, Lily. Lily was the daughter of my younger sister, Sarah. She was, in my parents' eyes, the golden grandchild, a perfect little angel forged from better material than my own child. Her father, Mark, was a successful tech entrepreneur, a man who dripped casual wealth. While I had married a kind, gentle high school teacher, my sister had married money, and my parents never, ever let me forget the difference. Their adoration for Mark and Lily was a constant, glaring spotlight that cast a long, cold shadow over me and Chloe. The first truly jarring sign was Christmas. It was our first Christmas after the divorce, and I was trying my best to stitch together some holiday magic for Chloe with threadbare resources. My parents, however, went all out for Lily, who was visiting from out of state. She unwrapped a brand new iPad, a 3-story designer dollhouse that took up half the living room, and a mountain of clothes from boutiques I couldn't even afford to walk past. Chloe, sitting beside her on the floor, opened her gifts from them, a scratchy-looking sweater that was clearly from a clearance rack, the plastic tag still stapled to the collar, and a used book with a slightly torn cover. I saw the flicker of confusion in Chloe's eyes, a shadow passing over her bright face, but she was a sweet, resilient kid. She forced a smile, held up the sweater, and said, "Thank you, Grandma, Grandpa. It's warm." Later that evening, after Chloe was in bed, I found my mother in the kitchen, humming as she wiped down the already spotless counters. "Mom," I started, trying to keep my voice even, "I really appreciate everything you do for us, but the gifts this morning, they were a little unbalanced." It made Chloe feel left out. Carol didn't even turn from the sink. "Oh, Amanda, don't be so sensitive," she sighed, her voice laced with that familiar tone of weary impatience. "Mark can afford to spoil Lily, and we were just trying to keep up. Besides, we know your finances are tight. We thought we were being practical for you." Practical. The word felt like a slap. They weren't being practical, they were drawing a line, making a public statement about value, about worth. My daughter's feelings were impractical. A few months later, another incident. Lily was visiting again, and my parents decided to take her to a major theme park for the weekend as a special treat. They didn't invite Chloe. Their excuse was that Chloe was too shy and wouldn't enjoy the crowds, and that it was a special trip just for Lily. I found Chloe in her room later that day, quietly drawing a picture of a roller coaster with a single, sad-looking little girl in the front car. She didn't say a word, but she didn't have to. The final confirmation of what I already knew in my gut came one afternoon when I was walking past their bedroom. The door was ajar, and I heard my mother on the phone with my Aunt Patricia. Her voice was bright and animated in a way I rarely heard it directed at me. "Oh, you should see her, Trish. Lily is just brilliant. She's already reading at a 4th grade level and so polite. Mark is thinking of buying a vacation home on the lake nearby. Wouldn't that be just wonderful for all of us?" There was a pause. I held my breath. "Oh, Amanda's fine," she said, her voice dropping, losing its sparkle. "It's just a lot having them here. It's a strain. And Chloe is so quiet, not bubbly and confident like Lily at all. Honestly, every time I look at them, it's a constant reminder of, well, you know. A failed marriage. A step back. A reminder of my failure. A strain." I stood frozen in the hallway, the words twisting in my gut like a knife. From that day on, I wasn't just working to get by, I was working to escape. I saved every penny, taking on freelance projects at night after Chloe was asleep, fueled by coffee and a desperate, burning need to find a place of our own. A place where my daughter wouldn't be seen as a burden, a living symbol of my mistakes. I was just a few months away from having enough for a deposit on a small apartment when I had to go on a mandatory work trip. It was only supposed to be for 5 days. But I finished my project early, a huge success, and my boss told me to head home. I was so excited to surprise Chloe. I practically flew home, my heart feeling light and hopeful for the first time in months. I walked through the front door 2 days early, my smile wide, expecting to hear the TV or Chloe's happy chatter. Instead, there was just silence. A heavy, unnatural, oppressive silence. "Mom? Dad?" I called out, dropping my suitcase in the entryway. No answer. "Chloe, honey? I'm home." The only response was a faint, muffled sound from below. A single, choked sob that was instantly swallowed by the stillness. My blood ran cold. The happy anticipation vanished, replaced by a primal dread. I left my bags where they were and followed the sound down the creaky, unpainted wooden steps to the basement. A wave of damp, musty air hit me, the smell of mildew and cold concrete that clings to your clothes and chills you to the bone. The only light came from a single, bare bulb hanging from a dusty wire, casting long, eerie shadows that danced like specters on the stone walls. And there she was. My sweet, vibrant, 8-year-old daughter, sitting on a lumpy, stained mattress that lay directly on the floor. Her beautiful wooden bed from her room upstairs was gone. In its place was this sad, discarded thing. Her little pink lamp, her favorite, was perched precariously on a rickety end table, its light looking weak and pathetic in the gloom. Her books and toys were piled haphazardly in damp-looking cardboard boxes in a dark corner, next to old paint cans and thick, dusty cobwebs. Tears were streaming down her face, silent and heartbreaking, as she clutched the stuffed unicorn I had won for her at a fair. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. A strange, icy calm washed over me, the kind of calm you feel in the moments before a hurricane makes landfall. It was a terrifying clarity. I knelt on the cold concrete floor, my knees protesting, and pulled her into my arms. She collapsed against me, her little body trembling with quiet, suppressed sobs that shook her from head to toe. "Sweetheart, what happened? Why is all your stuff down here?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper, afraid a normal tone would shatter the fragile stillness. She buried her face in my shoulder, her voice muffled by my jacket. "Grandma and Grandpa moved me," she mumbled. "They said Aunt Sarah and Uncle Mark and Lily are coming to stay for the whole month, and Lily needs my room. They said her daddy is very important and she needs the best room to be happy." "Your room?" I asked, my voice tight with disbelief. "Why didn't they give her the guest room? It's a perfectly nice room." Her next words felt like a physical punch to the gut. They said the guest room is for guests. And Grandma said I'm not a guest. I live here. So I have to use the basement. I have to use the basement. The dam of my composure finally cracked, but no sound came out. I just held her tighter, rocking her back and forth on the cold floor of that disgusting, forgotten part of the house. This wasn't just unfairness anymore. This wasn't about gifts or thoughtless comments. This was a deliberate act of cruelty, a calculated message. They had banished my child to a damp, unsafe basement to make way for their golden grandchild. I got her upstairs, cleaned the dust off her face, and wrapped her in the warmest blanket I could find. I found some ice cream in the back of the freezer and we ate it straight from the tub on the living room couch, a small, defiant act of comfort in a house that suddenly felt alien and hostile. An hour later, the front door opened, and in walked my parents, laughing about something they'd seen at the store. They stopped dead when they saw me sitting there, Chloe asleep with her head in my lap. "Amanda," my mother said, her smile faltering, her eyes darting around nervously. "You're back early. We weren't expecting you." I gently laid Chloe's head on a cushion and stood up. "Where were you?" I asked, my voice dangerously quiet. "We were just getting some special things for Lily's visit," my father, Richard, said, holding up a bag from an expensive organic grocery store. "Mark is flying in with her tomorrow, and you know how particular he is about food." "Why?" I said, my voice low and tight, each word a carefully chipped piece of ice. "Is my daughter's bed in the basement?" My mother actually scoffed, a short, sharp, dismissive sound. "Oh, Amanda, don't be so dramatic. We just moved her things down there temporarily. Lily is used to a certain standard, and your old room gets the best afternoon light. Mark wants her to be comfortable. She's a child, Mom. Chloe is a child. You put her in a damp, moldy basement with spiders and God knows what else." My voice was rising, and I didn't care. The icy calm was melting into white-hot rage. "It's not moldy," my father snapped, his face turning a blotchy red. "And we are trying to secure this family's future. You don't understand the pressure we're under. You just think about yourself." It was such a bizarre, out-of-place thing to say. Secure the family's future? What did that have to do with Chloe's bedroom? Sensing she was losing control of the narrative, my mother went for the jugular. She looked right at me, her eyes cold and hard as flint. "Frankly, Amanda, we have to prioritize. We have to think about what's best for the family as a whole. Lily is our real grandchild, after all. It's just different. Blood is thicker than water." The silence that followed was deafening, absolute. It sucked all the air out of the room. My own mother, standing in front of my sleeping child, telling me she was second class. I looked at my father, expecting him to object, to say something, anything. He just stared at the floor, his jaw tight. He was complicit. In that moment, the last thread of obligation, of daughterly duty, of the hope that they might one day see me and my daughter as enough, just snapped. I didn't yell anymore. The icy calm returned, sharper and colder than before. I walked over to Chloe, gently woke her, and knelt in front of her. "Chloe," I said, my voice clear and steady, a beacon in the toxic fog. "Go to the basement and pack a bag with your favorite things. Your books, your drawings, and your unicorn lamp. We're going on an adventure." I then looked back at my parents, who were watching me with a mixture of confusion and sputtering anger. "We're leaving." "Don't be ridiculous," my father blustered, finally finding his voice. "Where will you go? You can't afford it. You'll come crawling back in a week." "That's no longer your concern," I said, my voice devoid of any emotion. I looked at my mother one last time. "You've chosen your blood. Now I'm choosing my family." We packed in a blur of adrenaline and righteous fury. I threw our clothes into suitcases, my hands shaking. My parents hovered in the doorway, their tactics shifting wildly from anger to pleas to emotional blackmail. "You're ungrateful," my mother cried. "After all we've done for you, taking you in." Then, 5 minutes later, "Amanda, think about Chloe. Don't drag her out onto the street over a silly little room. You're being selfish." I ignored them. I walked out that front door, holding Chloe's small, warm hand in mine, and didn't look back. We spent that night in a cheap, anonymous motel on the highway. The room smelled of disinfectant and stale smoke, but it was clean, it was safe, and most importantly, it was ours. It was our sanctuary. The next morning, just as I knew it would, my phone started ringing off the hook. It was a coordinated assault, a campaign of guilt orchestrated by my mother. First, Aunt Patricia called. "Amanda, honey, what have you done?" she cooed, her voice thick with a cloying, false sympathy. "Your mother is absolutely devastated." She called me in tears. "You've broken her heart. You know how much she and your father are counting on Mark's visit. This is terribly embarrassing for them." Counting on Mark's visit? The strange phrase snagged in my mind again. Then came my uncle, then a cousin, all reading from the same script. I was selfish, disrespectful, ungrateful. I was putting my own wounded pride before the stability of my child. They painted a picture of my parents as loving, supportive martyrs who had made a small error in judgment, and me as the volatile, unhinged daughter who would make her own child homeless out of spite. The pressure was immense, a physical weight on my chest. For a fleeting, terrifying moment, I almost buckled. Maybe I had overreacted. Maybe I should have just swallowed the injustice for Chloe's sake, endured the basement, and kept the peace. But then Aunt Patricia called back, her patience clearly wearing thin. "I just don't understand why you're making such a fuss over this," she said, her syrupy tone gone, replaced by sharp annoyance. "I was the one who suggested it to your mother in the first place. It just makes sense to give Lily the best room. After all, her father is about to make that big investment in your dad's business. It's for the good of the whole family, Amanda. Why can't you see that?" The line went quiet. I think she realized, a second too late, what she'd said. "Investment?" I asked, my voice flat, every ounce of emotion drained away. "What investment?" "Oh, well, I really shouldn't have said anything. It's family business, dear. You just need to go home and apologize before you ruin everything for everyone." She hung up, but it was too late. The pieces clicked into place with a sickening, final thud. My father's bizarre line about securing the family's future. Their desperation to please Mark. It wasn't just about favoritism. It was about money. A cold fire lit inside me, burning away all the doubt and guilt. This was no longer just about a bedroom. This was about a betrayal so much deeper, so much more calculated than I could have ever imagined. That night, I couldn't sleep. I paced the small motel room while Chloe slept soundly, her face peaceful in the dim light from the parking lot. I kept thinking about that phrase, family business. My father had a small construction company that I knew had been struggling for years. He was a proud man and would never admit it, but I'd seen the stacks of overdue bills on his desk, the worried lines etched around his eyes. Then I remembered something. In my haste to leave, I had grabbed a box of old papers from the attic, thinking it contained Chloe's baby photos and school reports. On a wild hunch, I dragged it out from the corner of the room and opened it. Underneath photo albums and old, faded report cards was a manila folder I didn't recognize. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside was a draft of a letter, several pages long, written in my father's familiar, spiky scrawl. It was addressed to my brother-in-law, Mark. My heart pounded against my ribs as I scanned the page. It was a formal proposal, full of desperate-sounding business jargon. My father was essentially begging Mark for a massive loan, an investment to save his failing company from bankruptcy. But it was the final paragraph, on the last page, that made me feel physically sick. "We are so looking forward to your and dear Lily's month-long visit," he had written. "Carol and I will do everything in our power to ensure your daughter feels like a queen in our home. Showing you how much we value your side of the family is of the utmost importance to us right now. We consider it a down payment on the trust required for this vital partnership." A down payment. My daughter, my sweet, innocent child, banished to a basement, was part of a business transaction. Her humiliation, her tears, her fear, it was a down payment. I looked at the calendar on my phone. The annual Foundation Charity Gala, the biggest high society event in our town, was in 2 days. Mark was always a major sponsor, his company logo plastered everywhere. He, and my parents, would be there, networking, playing the part of the perfect, powerful, philanthropic family. And I knew, with absolute, chilling certainty, what I had to do. I wasn't just going to leave. I was going to burn their whole charade to the ground. The night of the gala, I used the last of my emergency funds. I didn't care. This was an investment of my own. I bought myself a simple but elegant black dress that made me feel powerful, and a beautiful new starlit blue dress for Chloe that made her gasp with delight. We were a team. We were armoring up for battle. As I did her hair, she looked at me in the mirror. "Mommy, are we going to a party?" she asked, her eyes wide. "Yes, honey," I said, my voice calm. "We're going to a party to tell the truth." We walked into the hotel ballroom, and it was exactly what you'd expect: low lighting, the clinking of champagne glasses, and the low, self-important hum of people making deals and connections. I spotted them immediately, holding court near the main stage like a royal family. My parents, Richard and Carol, beaming with pride. My brother-in-law, Mark, looking smug and successful. And standing beside him, the clear guest of honor, was Mr. Harrison, a legendary investor Mark had been trying to partner with for years. They were all laughing, the picture of familial success and solidarity. Their faces froze when they saw us walking towards them. My mother recovered first. She bustled over, her face a mask of concern, her smile a tight, angry line. "Amanda! What a surprise! I'm so glad you came to your senses," she hissed under her breath, trying to steer me away from the group. I stood my ground. Mr. Harrison, a man in his late 60s with sharp, intelligent eyes that missed nothing, looked over with polite curiosity. "Mark, is this more of your family?" he asked, his voice calm and authoritative. "Yes," Mark said, forcing a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "This is my sister-in-law, Amanda, and my wonderful niece, Chloe." This was it. The moment of truth. The stage was set. My mother, sensing an opportunity to play the victim and paint me as unstable, seized it. She placed a hand on Mr. Harrison's arm, her expression a perfect portrait of maternal suffering. "It's just so wonderful to be here together," she said, her voice dripping with poison disguised as honey. "Family is the most important thing, isn't it, Mr. Harrison? We've had a little family drama lately. Amanda has been going through a very tough time since her divorce, and sometimes she takes things the wrong way. Gets emotional. But we're working through it, as families do." I smiled back, a bright, serene smile that I knew must have terrified her. "You're right, Mom. Family is everything." I then turned my full attention to Mr. Harrison, my voice clear and professional, carrying easily across the quiet space. "Mr. Harrison, my mother mentioned family values. I couldn't agree more. In fact, I believe the values we hold in our family, like integrity, trust, and basic human decency, are the very same values we should look for in our business partners." Mark's smile tightened into a grimace. My father took a half step forward, his hand clenching and unclenching at his side. I continued, my gaze locked on Mr. Harrison, ignoring the others completely. "For instance, I was recently taught a very harsh lesson about what my parents truly value. You see, just a few days ago, they banished my 8-year-old daughter to a damp, unfinished basement." A collective intake of breath rippled through the nearby tables. Mr. Harrison's polite smile vanished, replaced by a look of sharp, focused attention. They moved her out of her perfectly good bedroom, I went on, my voice steady as a rock, to give the room to my other niece, Lily. A lovely gesture on the surface, perhaps. One might call it simple favoritism. But I was curious about the reasoning behind such an extreme action. My mother hissed my name like a curse, Amanda, this is not the time or the place. I ignored her and pulled the folded letter from my small clutch purse. It felt like a weapon in my hand. And then I found this. It's a business proposal. A very detailed one, from my father to his son-in-law, Mark. I didn't read it aloud. I didn't need to. I just held it up, the damning pages visible to everyone. In it, my father explains that making Lily feel like a queen during her visit is, and I quote, a down payment on the trust required for this vital partnership. He was trying to secure a rather large investment for his failing company. I let the words hang in the air, heavy and toxic. Then I looked from my ashen-faced parents to a stunned and horrified Mark, and finally back to Mr. Harrison, who looked like he'd just witnessed a car crash. So you see, Mr. Harrison, the issue wasn't just a bedroom. The issue is that in my family, a child's dignity is considered currency. My daughter's emotional well-being was a commodity to be traded to secure a business deal. Her inheritance, it seems, was not to be financial, but to be one of humiliation. My voice didn't shake. I have to ask myself, and I suppose you do too, what other moral shortcuts would a business built on such family values be willing to take? When the promotion of a company is built on the demotion of a child, what does that say about its foundation? The effect was instantaneous. It wasn't a loud explosion. It was a silent, devastating implosion. Mr. Harrison, a man known for his ruthless business acumen but also his staunch personal integrity, looked at my father with a level of contempt that was almost palpable. He then turned his cool, dismissive gaze on Mark. Mark, he said, his voice quiet but final, each word a nail in the coffin of their deal. I believe our discussion about a potential partnership is concluded. Indefinitely. He gave me a slight, almost imperceptible, respectful nod, and then he turned and walked away without a backward glance. The public humiliation was absolute. My parents stood there, mouths opening and closing like fish out of water, their carefully constructed world shattered in front of their peers. Mark looked like he had been physically struck, his face a mask of shock and fury. In the echoing silence of the parking lot, they tried to stop us. Panic had replaced their pride, their faces etched with desperation. Amanda, wait, my father pleaded, grabbing my arm, his grip surprisingly strong. You've ruined us. That deal was everything. You've ruined this family. I pulled my arm away, not with anger, but with a weary finality. No, I said, my voice finally free of the ice, filled only with a sad, profound certainty. You did. You did that when you decided my daughter's heart was something you could barter with. This was never about my pride. This was about my daughter. You put a price on her. You put a price on your own integrity. You made your choice. Now you have to live with it. I looked from my father to my mother, who was openly weeping now, not tears of remorse, but tears of self-pity. We're done. Don't call Chloe. Don't call me. And with that, I opened the car door for my daughter, buckled her in, and we drove away. And for the first time in a very, very long time, we didn't look back. The 6 months that followed were the hardest and most beautiful of my life. We didn't just move on, we actively, consciously rebuilt. I found a small but sunny 2-bedroom apartment in a new neighborhood, a place that was truly ours. We spent the first weekend painting Chloe's room a bright, cheerful pink, the color she'd always wanted. Seeing her laugh as she drew a big, lopsided heart on the wall with her new crayons, I knew I had made the right choice. Our own castle, she called it. Her confidence, which had been shrinking under the weight of my parents' disapproval, started to blossom. She was lighter, freer, making friends at her new school. At work, free from the constant stress and toxicity at home, I poured all my energy into my projects. My focus and creativity returned, and my bosses noticed. I earned a major promotion, and the new salary that came with it was more than just money, it was freedom. It was the sound of my own 2 feet landing firmly on the ground. But the most important thing we built wasn't financial. It was our family charter. It sounds silly, but it was our Declaration of Independence. We got a big piece of poster board and wrote down our own rules in glitter pens. Rule number 1, love is what makes a family, not blood. Rule number 2, we always listen to and protect each other. Rule number 3, Friday night is always pizza and movie night, no exceptions. It hung on our fridge, a daily reminder of what truly mattered. Last week, sitting in our cozy living room, I did something I never thought I'd have the courage to do. I started a small, anonymous blog. I wrote down our story, not with anger, but with the hope that it might help someone else feel less alone. The response was overwhelming. Emails and comments poured in from women all over the country who had their own stories of being the lesser daughter, of fighting for their children against the people who were supposed to love them most. That blog is now my side project, my passion, my way of turning our pain into a lighthouse for others lost in a similar storm. Tonight, as I was tucking Chloe into bed in her own pink room, surrounded by her drawings and her stuffed animals, she looked up at me and said, "Mommy, I love our castle." I used to think family was something you were born into, something you were stuck with, for better or for worse. But I know now that isn't true. A true family is a fortress. It's a fortress you build yourself, brick by brick, choosing every single person you let inside. It's a sanctuary you have to be willing to defend, no matter the cost. Thank you so much for listening to my story. It wasn't easy to share, but I felt like I had to. My question for you all is, have you ever had to choose between the family you were born into and the family you've built? Let me know your experiences in the comments below. And if my story resonated with you, please give this video a like and subscribe for more. It really does help.